Welcome into the ACCHL Tournament Preview Show. My name is Ethan Berry. I'm alongside Zach Selwaye and Thomas Overton. Guys, it's been a pretty good hockey season, if I should say so myself. And we're headed to Charlottesville in a couple days. The ACCHL Tournament will be at Main Street Arena in Charlottesville, Virginia, and we're here to talk about it. Guys, first let's get started with the regular season. George Washington was the best team all year. Would you agree?
I think so, Ethan, but I think at the same time, I don't want to say they got lucky, but definitely they were one of the teams that I think that definitely should have had a loss or two, but somehow they pulled away with the win. They deserve to be in that spot because they've been a hard-working team, but I'm not sure if they really deserve to be in the number one spot.
You saw George Washington live, correct? What are your thoughts on them?
Yeah, they look pretty good, especially for early in the season. Just look like a team with a lot of composure and poise, and look like a veteran team, even though way back in September and took down State 6-4 at home. So look for them to maybe run the table, but maybe someone come in and take away their throne.
George Washington went 8-1 this year. Their lone loss was recently to Georgetown. But they were in first place all year, guys. They just lost their last game after they had clinched the number one seed. So we'll see if they've got what it takes to go all the way. 2 years ago, they beat NC State in a phenomenal game in the championship game. Last year, NC State beat them in the semifinals, so maybe we'll see a third year in a row where NC State will face George Washington. As for the number 2 seed, it's the host Virginia Cavaliers. Myself and Zach, we saw them twice. Zach, what are your thoughts on the Cavs?
They're dangerous and they're lethal, Ethan, and it's one team that State has had consistently trouble with. First game, blown out 7-1, not a good showing by State. I'm not sure if Virginia just played good or State played bad. It was one of the two. I'm going to give it to Virginia playing just over the top. State came in a little bit unprepared, I think, for that game, but they came back more prepared back. I believe it was November that we went, Ethan, to Charlottesville. It was an exciting road trip. A lot of good food there. Really great place to play and a really great place to live there, but State once again got beaten again 5-3 where they did end up showing up. So Virginia definitely out-hustled State. They're a team to watch out for in this tournament, Ethan.
And Virginia is the host team, as I mentioned. They're the reigning champs. So we'll see if they can make it back-to-back. It's a great defensive team. And the teams that I've seen, they are the team that played Sam Banishevitz and Luis Jimenez the best. So that's going to be a test for the Wolfpack. But I thought NC State played well for 2 periods up in Charlottesville. And then the third period, things just went down the drain. State can play with them.
I think Luis actually did pretty good in that game, if you ask me. He did register a goal, set up several good plays. Sam Banishevitz played great. They limited their scoring threats, but I don't think they limited their playing threats themselves. Definitely, it was a little bit less scoring, but I still think that Sam Banishevitz and Luis Jimenez got their point across.
NC State is the number 3 seed. We'll talk about NC State more in depth in a little bit. Virginia Tech is the 4th seed. They're taking on Wake Forest. Guys, Virginia Tech, what are our thoughts?
Well, you see, the Virginia Tech, Ethan, State beat them 6-1 back in the Stephen Russell Memorial Tournament. I believe it was the first day.
It was.
It was the first day, and it was a really great game that State played. Joey Hall was outstanding as usual. It was really just a good game. And Virginia Tech, I would say, they really need to step it up in this tournament because they just haven't seemed that strong to me. They're a team to watch out for as well, but you know, considering that State beat them by such a big score, it's going to be a bit of a competition for them.
Virginia Tech, NC State did not see Virginia Tech's best game back at the Stephen Russell Tournament. But Thomas, this is Virginia Tech's first year back in the ACCHL. They were out of the league for a while. Do you think this is their first year back, do you think that'll be an advantage or disadvantage for them in the tournament?
I mean, they definitely want to come out and get a good showing back in their first tournament back. You don't want to come and just get blown out in the first game. And I like to note that Capital Division has 4 teams.
Yeah, that's a good division.
Yeah.
Wake Forest is another team in the Capital Division. They'll be taking on Virginia Tech at 9:30 on Friday night. Wake Forest had their best season in potentially program history last year. They were the number 2 seed in the tournament, and I'm pretty sure they beat State twice last year. But then Wake Forest got upset in the first round by the number 7 seed. I can't remember exactly who it was. Wake Forest was one of the best teams all year, and then they went and lost in the first round. Thomas, do you think that'll have much of an impact on them after being upset last year? How do you think they'll respond this year?
Yeah, I definitely think teams that shouldn't have lost a game in the tournament, the next year they come back with a chip on their shoulder and definitely want to do better and don't want the same thing to happen, especially if maybe you have some seniors on that team. It's their last season. They don't want to lose their last 2 in the first round.
Yeah, you definitely don't want to go out like that. NC State is facing James Madison. We'll talk a little bit more about the Dukes later on. NC State did not face James Madison this year, but the Dukes did win the Stephen Russell Tournament earlier, as we mentioned. The number 7 seed is the Charlotte 49ers. They are one of the 2 teams that beat NC State in the ACCHL standings. Virginia is the other team, obviously. Zach, we were in Charlotte a couple of weeks ago for that game. What are your takeaways from the 49ers there?
I think UNC Charlotte played a good game for the first 2 periods, but they let off the gas in that third period, and State came back charging, almost completed the comeback, got 3, didn't get to finish the game. Sadly, it was a really good comeback, but Charlotte beat State fair and square, and 1-1 for the season series. So hopefully State, if they end up facing Charlotte, hopefully to improve on that. But Charlotte is looking pretty good, I think.
Sam Banishevitz had a double hat trick against them when State played them at the Iceplex. So, that's something to keep in mind as well. In my mind, Charlotte is one of the best offensive teams in the ACCHL, but defensively, they can definitely be had, as we see from Banishevit's double hat trick. Being an offensive team versus a defensive team, Thomas, where do you think the advantage lies there?
We always talk about in basketball, defense wins championships, but hockey, I don't know. Goals come so short. There are not many a game, so if you can put 1 or 2 more in the net, that could be the difference.
One thing that is really outstanding for the Charlotte 49ers is Thomas Gilmartin, one of their defensemen for the team. He's had an outstanding season, around 17 points, but the one big player is Angie Miller. He is a tall, speedy, lethal forward, has terrorized State, had 2 assists in the most previous game that we went to. Ethan had a hat trick in the game when they came to the Iceplex here. So those 2 guys, Gilmartin and Andrew Miller, along with goaltender Daniel Ritter, they form a very dangerous trio for the 49ers.
St. Joe's is the 8th seed. They went 4-3-2 this year to finish with 10 points. They're dangerous, though, Thomas. Tell us about a couple of their players.
Yeah, and a 3-2 overtime loss to George Washington a couple of days ago. One line, both forwards, JT Tarantino, with 2 goals, and on the same line, Ryler Harper assists on both of those goals. So be able to take George Washington to overtime, they seem to have the firepower.
They played George Washington to overtime recently, and now they play them again here coming up on Friday. Zach, do you think after going to overtime, do you think that helps St. Joe's in a rematch, or do you think George Washington will be able to handle them this time?
I think what's going to happen is St. Joe's, it's important for any team to get revenge, and they're always going to want to go out there and get that revenge. And I think that especially for the fact they're playing them again in a huge environment like the tournament is going to be huge for them, and they're really going to go out there and really get their best.
Now, guys, we'll move to the team that we cover, NC State. NC State is the 3 seed, went 7-2 this year. Losses against Charlotte and Virginia in the Stephen Russell tournament. State has done well in the regular season. We were talking about this the other night at the Iceplex after State beat West Virginia, finished the 2-game sweep. Regular season has never been State's issue, but they've come up short twice in the tournament, in the championship game the last 2 years. And so I told you this, that all of State's eggs are in the tournament basket. There's no regular season success that State can have that will outweigh anything in the tournament. Thomas, how do you agree with that mentality, or?
Yeah, it's all about the tournament. It's great to win, regular season championship, but at the end of the year, everyone remembers the tournament, so I expect State to get their practice in and be ready.
If you ask me, nobody remembers. Take basketball, for example. Nobody's ever going to remember who was the number 1 seed in the ACC tournament. People remember who won the ACC championship, right? So I think that's really what you got to take into consideration. Zach, we've talked about the dynamic duo all year, Sam Banishevitz and Luis Jimenez. What are your thoughts on them headed into the tournament?
They finally reconnected, Ethan, after that long stretch where Sam Banishevitz was goalless, and stretching back to after. Really, I think it started actually at the first backyard brawl back in November, where he only got an assist that game, didn't score until I think it was actually Duke. I may be mistaken.
Yeah, I think so.
Because it was the first home game after the road trip, which was absolutely abysmal, Ethan, and we just talk about that road trip over and over about the flaws in that. But once they reconnected, they've been on fire. Sam Banishevitz had upwards of 8 goals in the past 4 or 5 games. Mm-hmm. He's been doing incredible. Luis Jimenez is doing as great as well, got a couple goals. Last night when they did end up playing West Virginia. So the dominant duo, they've reconnected. They're going to be on fire going in here, and after a good week of practice, they're going to be dangerous.
Thomas, you saw the team earlier in the year, and State's added a bunch of guys back since you saw them. Ryan Kinney, Will Bieberdorf, Jack McDonald, to name a few. How do you think the experience that they got back in October will help them in the tournament?
Yeah, it was such an interesting lineup up there, and at George Washington and then at Millersville, Sam Banishevitz only played 1 game. Luis Jimenez took most of the scoring in the second game, But I think just what they learned from that is just have to be ready to play with anyone. Maybe someone unfortunately gets an injury or someone's sick, but the chemistry between all the teammates, being able to play with anyone.
Joey Hall's going to be in net. Zach, you think that he'll get 2 out of the 3 games. Josh Cannon will likely get a game. Which game is what remains to be determined. Of course, State's got to win the first game to even get 2 more games. Just a quick refresher on the tournament. If you win the first game, you're guaranteed 2 more games because there's a consolation game. But if you win on the first day, or you lose on the first day, you're done. You go home. So assuming State gets the 3 games, how do you see the goaltending playing out?
You know, Ethan, I want to say it should go Joey, Josh, Joey. But at the same time, because you say that there's going to be a consolation game, first win guarantees it. So I think that they should throw Josh in for one of those games. I don't know which game it should be necessarily, but Joey should at least get the first game and the final game. Josh can play somewhere in the middle, probably just that second game.
Well, I think what you have to take into consideration is if you're in the consolation game and you're probably not going to play your number 1 goalie. Do you agree?
I mean, especially on a short rest in the consolation game to give someone else a chance to develop, yeah.
What do you do if you win your first game with Joey, you go to your number 2 with Josh Cannon on Saturday, and then you lose? What would you do on Sunday in a consolation game?
Yeah, it all depends on how the 2 goalies played in their first previous games. I mean, third place is still a medal game, so maybe let the underclassmen play to develop, or maybe give it to the more experienced guy to try to come away with third place.
It's a tough decision.
It is a tough
What
decision.
would you?
You know, quite honestly, I would give Ian, if say this loses the second night, they should give Ian Hutchison starting the third day, because eventually he's going to develop into that starting goaltender for the Ice Pack eventually if he goes well through tryouts and things like that. So it's going to be really good to see if he gets experience in this kind of tournament as well. So as Joey's had experience, Josh is going to get a game in, and then to get Ian in, you know, they're going to have experience going forward.
I agree. That's a good point that I hadn't thought of. I think it's a good chance you could see Ian if you go Joey, Josh the first 2 days, and then you end up with a loss. Zach, we know about how good State's top line is with Banashevitz, Jimenez, and Eric Todd. Who's a guy that State needs to step up who isn't on the top line?
You know, I'm going to have to give it to Eric Webb. Has 2 goals and 2 assists this season. Not the kind of guy you see scoring. Incredible 2-goal performance against UNC Chapel Hill and backyard brawl. 2 beautiful slot tip goals right there. One of the goals, actually, he was making a pass, went off his skate as well, so it was kind of a lucky bounce. But I think Eric Webb has potential, and he could really let it flourish in this tournament if the team just gives him a chance to let him shine.
Thomas, who's another guy that State needs to step up?
Yeah, I think we're looking at the other Eric down on the 4th line in the penalty kill, Eric Johnson, and just how fast he can skate. Him being on the penalty kill seems like a good resource, a good weapon for State to have. Maybe even get a shorthanded goal. So if he can step up and create something while State's trying to kill off penalties, that could be big in a game.
Speaking of the penalty kill, State spent a little too much time on the penalty kill this year, which is going to be a big key, which brings me to a couple other guys. Cam Mazikowski, Ellis Rushford. Mazikowski was ACCHL Rookie of the Year. He's had a really good freshman year. So is Ellis Rushford, but they got to stay out of the box, don't they?
Absolutely, Ethan. And if you look at the penalty kill, I think they started off strong, but they just got tired. I mean, they've been on the penalty kill upwards of pretty much half the game almost. Probably not, but guesstimate a little bit. I mean, they've been in the penalty box a lot and on the penalty kill. Cam Mazikowski's done a great job, but the team just has to do the best they can, and if they're on the ice the entire game, they're not going to have enough energy to play even strength, Ethan. So discipline's going to be a factor, but it's really going to be a matter of stick placement and controlling the temperament after the whistle is called. There's going to be fisticuffs. It's a high-flying, high-energy game. Just keep it under control and play to win.
If State can keep those guys out of the box, not only are they keeping them out of the box, but they're 2 of their better defensemen, so that helps your team as well. A guy for me to watch is going to be Ryan Linsmeyer. Linsmeyer's had an excellent senior season as a depth option. He's actually a graduate student, but he's got 5-6 goals on the year, and he's the type of guy, along with Eric Webb, who you're just going to get dirty goals out of. At PNC Arena, he got a goal just by throwing the puck to the front of the net. It went off a skate, went in, he got a goal. Those are the type of goals that are going to win you championships. Do you agree?
Oh, yeah, especially in the tournament. You're going to need a couple lucky breaks to go your way. And you look for State, they can't rely on Banashevitz and Jimenez for the whole tournament. Got to get a couple bounces.
NC State taking on the James Madison Dukes. 6-3 this year. They are the number 6 seed. Thomas, who's their best player?
I mean, we can look at some of the stats, just like Keegan Kelly stands out to me. A hat trick in an 8-5 loss against Virginia Tech, even though it was a loss, just an offensive weapon there. And James Madison as a team took down Virginia in one game this season, so
Virginia is such a tough matchup that, I'd say beating Virginia is maybe one of the most impressive wins in the league. So what do you think beating Virginia? We don't know a whole lot about James Madison, but what can we take away from the fact that they beat Virginia?
I think beating Virginia is going to be a huge momentum booster going into the tournament, Ethan, and as well, it's just going to be a really important thing to make sure they carry that momentum from that win into the rest of this game. The momentum has changed, of course, from that win, but going into this tournament, it's just going to be big because, of course, the reigning champion, everyone wants to take them down. So it's going to be a matter of can they do it.
James Madison has historically been a lower seed that has caused issues for, the favorites headed into the tournament. How much of an impact do you think that'll have on NC State's psyche headed into the game?
I mean, I definitely think they need to prepare for a tough game. You can't write off anyone in the tournament, so State just needs to get their heads wrapped around that every game's going to be a tough game and come out ready.
Before we move on, we were able to catch up with a couple of guys headed into this weekend's tournament.
Thomas Overton here now with Alex Katsidis, senior defenseman, captain for the George Washington Colonials. Alex, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
All right, after going 8-1 in conference play, what is your team's mentality going into the tournament?
I mean, we can't really take any team lightly, especially in the first round. Every game could be the last, and we're just going to face every opponent, the same way we did all year. We obviously had a lot of success in the regular season, but playoffs is a whole new ball game, so we just got to elevate what we've been doing so far and hopefully find success with it.
Yeah, great answer. We talked about earlier on the show how every game's going to be challenging no matter who you're playing. So, next question. What are you and your team doing specifically to prepare to play St. Joseph's in round one? We know a close game a couple days ago in overtime. What are you doing differently?
I mean, they're a great hockey team, extremely physical. I think they're one of the most physical teams in the league. So we're going to try to set the tempo early, physicality-wise with that. Maybe play our game a little more. We got lost, getting caught up in nonsense the second time we played them around. So we're just going to try to stick to our game and not really change much. We got a great group of kids, and we're extremely confident with each other. So we're just going to try to keep it simple and play, GW hockey the way we've been playing all year.
All right, final question. Winning the Admirals Cup requires winning 3 games in 3 days. What are you and your team doing to prepare physically?
I mean, hydration, rest is really big. Guys are really focused, really, ready to go. Being a senior, I know me and all the other seniors, this is our last shot. This is the last competitive hockey we're probably going to play. So just having the right mentality coming into the rink, with the mentality that we want to win, and working as hard as we possibly can. We've worked hard enough to get to this position. We got to step it up and work even harder moving forward through each game.
All right, Alex, thanks for joining us, and good luck to you.
Awesome. Take care, guys.
Want to thank George Washington for allowing us to talk to one of our players. Next up, we've got one of the fastest players in the ACCHL from UNC Charlotte.
We are delighted today to be joined by Angie Miller from the UNC Charlotte 49ers. Andrew, how you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm doing just fine. So the 49ers finished 5-4 in the ACC, and that's a pretty good record. And you guys are going to be facing off against UVA as the first game. But to talk about the regular season, of course, how do you think the team has played, and what's sort of been the secret to your guys' success?
I think we have a very high-powered offense this year. We've been 5-4 in the ACC. I think the 4 games that we lost, I believe, were all within 1 or 2 goals. So I think message here is just to finish off in the third period.
And especially third period as well. How important is it for your team to play a full 60 minutes? Like, for example, in the game against NC State just a while back there, it was a full 60-minute game from your team, did very well. And so how important is it to keep that energy up?
I think it's very important. We've been working on practice, and we've just been doing suicides, getting ready for the third period in every game. I think that's a big part of our play.
Now, today you actually guys won against Virginia Tech 3-2, and really the momentum from winning games is going to be big going forward no matter what. But how important is it to carry it into this very important ACCHL tournament?
Exactly, especially against another ACC team. It was good to get a win there after losing 3 straight. So I think that'll help us a tremendous amount.
Now, the turnaround has got to be quick. Your first team that you're going to be facing is UVA, and that's not going to be an easy game there, Andrew. So what's really going to be the message for your team going into that one?
No, it's not. I think we lost to them 8-7 earlier in the season. I think it's going to be difficult playing at UVA against their tough crowd there as well. I think just stay positive throughout the whole game. Don't let the crowd get in our heads or anything like that.
That's going to be very important. We thank you, Andrew, for joining us here on PackTV, and we hope you have a good night.
Appreciate you as well.
Finally, we've got to have somebody from NC State on because we're an NC State station.
Zach Salai here talking with Cam Kowski from the NC State Ice Pack, dominant player this year. Cam, how you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing just fine, Cam, and really just talking about this season so far. It was pretty good. I don't know what you would say yourself. 10-goal season for a defenseman, one of the highest scoring defensemen on the team. You also won ACC Rookie of the Year. Talk about that, Cam.
I mean, it's a pretty cool accomplishment to know that I was recognized by the league as one of the better new players to the league, and it's just a great honor to know that I have that.
And it's a great honor for sure there, Cam, but one of the big stories for your team recently is that you guys have been on a 4-game win streak, toppling over Duke, UNCW, and a recent home-and-home stand with West Virginia. So what's been going right for this team so far, coming after that really abysmal weekend against Charlotte and Clemson?
I think everyone kind of understood that we have to show up for every game because we kind of took that weekend off and it showed. So once we realized that we need to show up for every game against every team, and things have started to click a little more, and everyone's getting back into it. So
it's
good.
It's an important thing for sure there, Cam, and especially this weekend for the ACCHL tournament, your team's going to really have to show up. You guys are playing James Madison, who recently was the loser against Wake Forest, and they're a pretty good team, Cam. So for your team, for the Ice Pack, what's going to be the message going forward?
I think that it's just we got to stay hungry because we're definitely one of the better teams in the league. We know that, and we know that we can win. So it's just a matter of making sure we want it and outworking everyone else.
And we hope so, Cam. Thank you for joining us here on PackTV, and we wish you luck on your tournament.
Thank you, man.
All right, guys, before we go, we want to go ahead and get bold predictions in. Thomas, get us started.
I think Virginia Tech comes home with the Admirals Cup. They beat in-state rival Virginia somewhere in the bracket.
That's pretty bold, Thomas. I like it. Zach, what do you have?
You know, I'm going to go with the other Virginia team here, Ethan. I think it's going to be UVA and State in the final. George Washington is the number 1 seed, but I think they are going to be a bit liable for a loss. These two teams, State and UVA, they're going to be very good, and I think they're very dangerous. They both have their lethal assets. UVA has won 2 of the contests this year against State, but I think with State's momentum, 4-game win streak, they have a good chance to beat UVA in the final.
My bold prediction is going to be that chalk holds for the entire tournament, and George Washington and Virginia will face off in the championship game. Usually, I feel like every year we see an upset. In any tournament, you're always going to see an upset, a road team, or the higher seed team winning. I don't think that's going to happen in this tournament. I think every higher seed team is going to win up until Sunday when George Washington and Virginia face off for the championship. That'll do it for us here. We want to thank the players for joining us. We want to thank you for watching. Guys, it's been a fun season. I think it's going to be a really fun tournament. We'll be broadcasting only the NC State games from Charlottesville. Hopefully at some point in the future we'll be able to broadcast the whole tournament. But for this year, we think that we're only going to be broadcasting the NC State games. We'll let you know if that changes. You can catch us on YouTube, or of course, if you're on NC State's campus, we'll be streaming on Tally Student Union on Friday at 4:30 when NC State faces James Madison. Guys, it's been fun. Thanks for being here with me, and we want to thank you for watching.